You are listening to a recording produced exclusively for M-Jam from London. It is not commercially available anywhere, and the audio reading is copyright to M-Jam from London and this YouTube channel. The reader is Matthew Jones. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you for listening. The Heel by Cyril Hare. The police car summoned from county headquarters at Markhampton skirted the aerodrome and drove quickly on up the village street. It was 8:30 on a fine spring morning, and the road was empty, except for a string of the American Army trucks that now seemed a permanent feature of the country roads in that particular part of England. Sergeant Place of the Berkshire County Constabulary, sitting beside the young detective who was driving him, eyed them with disfavour. He had no objection to Americans as such. By and large they were no worse behaved than the natives, but their pattern of misbehaviour was different, and to a man nurtured in routine that was in itself an offence. This job at Hawthorne Cottage now, 10 to 1 there was an American at the back of it, and that would mean trouble. Hawthorne Cottage was an ancient, rather depressed little house, standing isolated on the farther side of the village. It was typical of the small residences in the locality whose owners had cashed in on the invasion by letting them furnished to visiting officers at exorbitant rates. A car containing the police surgeon drew up behind the police car as it reached the entrance, and the three men went into the house together. It was something of a relief to the sergeant to find the door opened by an obvious Englishman, a sallow, middle-aged man in the discreet garb of a manservant. "Will you come this way, please?" he said in the accepted phrase of his profession, and led them upstairs to the best bedroom. He opened the door and stood aside for them to enter. The man in the bed had apparently been dead some hours, for his body was already cold. He was in his middle 40s, Sergeant Place judged. His features were round and indeterminate. He was dressed in expensive and rather garish silk pyjamas, which looked out of place in the shabbily furnished room. On the bedside table there was a half-empty bottle of whisky, an entirely empty glass, and a round cardboard box of the type used by chemists for dispensing pills, also empty. On the floor beside it was a letter with an envelope addressed simply Mr. William Harris. It had not come through the post. Brace gave some instructions to his assistant and left the room. He found the servant standing in the corridor just outside the door. "Let's go downstairs, shall we? We can talk better there." The man preceded him down the narrow stairway into the sitting-room. Place eyed him narrowly as he stood, deferential and nervous, in front of the empty grate. "You haven't been here long, have you?" "No, sir. Only 3 days. We were in London before that." "But how easy! You forgot to duck your head for the beam on the landing. This place was let furnished, I suppose, to an American?" "Not an American, actually, sir. Mr. Harris was English. He lived in the States a number of years, I understood, and did pick up some American habits, I may say, sir." He was talking more easily now. Place's grin had an infectious quality about it. "And what is your name?" "Wilson, sir. Thomas Wilson." "Well, Wilson, tell me, when did you find that your master was dead?" "When I went in this morning to give him his cup of tea, sir. I didn't touch anything, but I rang the police station straight away. I hope I did right." "Quite right. And when had you last seen him before that?" "Last night, sir, about 10:30. He'd given me the evening off, and he was just getting into bed when I came in." "And what can you tell me about Mr. Harris?" "There's very little I can tell you, sir. I've only been with him 2 weeks altogether. He engaged Mayfrook Chilton's, the domestic agency. You'll have heard of him, no doubt. He was a little, strange in his ways. I can tell you that, sir." "Strange? Well, naturally. Just told me he had American habits." "Not in that way, sir. I don't mean that, no." "Well, he was frightened." "What of?" "People, sir. Of Americans especially. That was why he took the house. He wanted to get right away from London, he told me. There were too many Americans there." The idea of coming to Berkshire to get away from that particular danger provoked Sergeant Place to laugh outright. "He chose the wrong spot to come to, then. Didn't he know about the air base in the village?" Apparently not, sir. I think it came as a great shock to him when he found out. Only yesterday he said to me—" This was the worst of nervous witnesses, Place reflected. Once help them to get over their fright, and they will ramble on forever. It was time to get back to the matter in hand. He interrupted Wilson without ceremony. "Do you know anything about this?" He produced the envelope which he had taken from the bedroom. "Oh, that, sir? Yes, I gave it to Mr. Harris last night when I came in." "Where did it come from?" "The staff sergeant gave it to me to give to him." "What staff sergeant? I don't understand." "Ah, well, I was telling you, sir, when you interrupted me. It happened yesterday morning. Mr. Harris drove me down to the village to do some shopping. We were held up at the village street where they were doing some road repairs. Only single-line traffic, you know, sir. Anyway, there was an American Army truck coming the other way, and this staff sergeant was sitting beside the driver. Left-hand drive, of course, sir, so he came past next to Mr. Harris. He seemed to recognize him, sir." "How do you know that?" "Well, he spoke to him, sir. Just one word. It sounded like blimey." "Not a very American word, Wilson. Are you sure it wasn't limey?" "It could have been that, sir. What would that mean, if I might ask?" "It's a slang word for an Englishman." "Go on." "Whatever it was, it seemed to upset Mr. Harris a lot. He drove on as soon as the truck had passed, and never stopped in the village at all. We did our shopping in Markhampton. Then, last night, I saw the staff sergeant again." "Where?" "At the Spotted Dog, sir. I was spending my evening out there. The place was full of American soldiers, and he was with them. He recognized me at once and spoke to me. He stood me a drink or two, and then, well, I suppose you might say he pumped me, sir." "Found out who you were and where you were living and so on?" "Just so, sir. Then, just before closing time, he asked the barman for a bit of paper and an envelope, and he wrote something and told me to give it to Mr. Harris. So I did, sir." "And you don't know what the letter said?" "Naturally not, sir." "You might be interested to know. This is what it says. Well, Limey, this is quite a surprise. I'll be looking in on your hidey-hole around noon tomorrow, so you'd best open up." "Is that all, sir?" "That's all. And it's signed Joe." "Ah, that would be the staff sergeant, no doubt, sir. Would you know him again if you saw him?" "Well, these Americans all look very much alike to me, sir, but I dare say I should." "Well, that appears to be that. You gave him that letter, and he is dead." "Dead from what, exactly, Doctor?" he asked as the police surgeon came into the room. "One of the barbiturates, undoubtedly. I can't say more until we've had an analysis. Death took place about 8 or 10 hours ago, I should think. No sign of violence that I can see. If you don't want me further, I shall be going now. Shall I make arrangements to have him moved?" Not just yet, thank you, Doctor. I'd rather not have any coming and going here till the afternoon. Perhaps we shall have a visitor about midday." After seeing the doctor out, Place called upstairs. "Percy?" "Yes, Sarge?" "Take the car round to the back of the house, will you? Somewhere where it won't be seen from the road." Percy came downstairs. "I had a good look round his room. Lovely clothes he's got, sir. Yank stuff, very flash. I found this in a drawer. I thought it might interest you." He handed the sergeant a slim bundle of press cuttings and went out to the car. Place glanced at the papers in his hand. They were all from American newspapers, and were arranged in reverse order of date. The top one on the bundle caught his eye. "This morning, John Benjamin Spencer went to the electric chair for the slaying of janitor Edward Hart," it began. He delved a little further down and found a familiar name. English-born William S. Harris, one-time associate of accused John B. Spencer, took the stand today as state witness. "Will you be requiring me any more, sir?" "No." "Yes." "What did Mr. Harris do when you gave him a note?" "He read it, sir." "Anything else?" "Then he sent me downstairs for the whisky and 2 glasses." "2 glasses?" Mr. Harris was like that, very free and easy, quite the American in his ways, for all he was as English as you or I. He asked me to have a drink with him, not at all like any other gentleman I've been with. Place looked at his unhealthy face, his unsteady, tobacco-stained fingers. "You drink quite a bit, don't you, Wilson?" "A trifle, sir, I must admit. On occasion." "Was that how you came to lose your last post?" "No, sir. I've been in first-class service all my life and always had a good character. My last position was with Lord Gaveston. 5 years in his lordship's service, and only lost that when the household broke up after the divorce. This place was beneath me altogether. I only took it because it was all Chilterns had on offer at the time, and the money was good. Chilterns will answer for me, sir. They know me there, always pleased to recommend me to the best houses. Ask them now if you don't believe me. Belgrave 8290, the number is. You can ring them on long distance right away if you like." "That'll do, Wilson. There's nothing to get excited about." "I'm sorry, sir, but a man in my position has nothing but his character to depend on. I've had rather a shock, and I had no breakfast this morning yet." "Just finish your story and take it quietly. You brought Mr. Harris for whisky, you were saying." "That's right, sir. When I brought it up, he was sitting on the right side of his bed. He poured out 2 glasses, and we each had one. Then he told me to leave the bottle and his glass with him, and said good night. That's the last I saw of him till I found him this morning." "Thank you, Wilson. You've been most helpful. Now you go to your kitchen and get yourself something to eat." Place looked at his watch. It was just 9 o'clock. That meant 3 hours to wait, if Staff Sergeant Joe was punctual. And if he chose not to keep his appointment, how many staff sergeants, he wearily wondered, would there be at the swarming air base who answered to the name of Joe? And how long would it take him to sort them out? It could have been worse, of course. The letter might have been signed Butch or Red. To judge from the delinquents who passed through his hands, 50% of the United States forces bore those outlandish names. But Joe was bad enough. Meanwhile, he must wait. Waiting is part of police routine, and Place found it no great hardship. He had for once a comfortable chair to wait in, and a bunch of press cuttings to while away the time. These he found to be the record of a very commonplace murder, the killing of a hapless employee in the course of a raid on a bank. And John B. Spencer, to judge from his photograph, had been a very commonplace young man, as murderers, in the sergeant's experience, were apt to be. As for Mr. Harris, it seemed that he had been lucky to have figured in the trial as a witness, and not with Spencer in the dock. Or had he been so lucky, thinking of a man who had been frightened of Americans and was now lying in the bed upstairs? Sergeant Place was not so sure he'd been lucky at all. He read and reread, savouring with delicate contempt each item where American judicial procedure differed from the familiar perfection of the Markhampton Assizes. Finally, some sixth sense told him to raise his head and look out of the window, just as Percy called from the hall. "Here he comes, Sarge!" Place opened the door to a thick-set young man in khaki, who looked at him in surprise. "Have I come right? They told me this was Mr. Harris's place." "They told you quite correctly. Come in." Hesitantly the visitor entered. He looked hard at Place, and then at his subordinate. "You're Dix, ain't you? What's happened?" "Did you write a letter to Mr. Harris last night?" "I did." "He was found dead in bed this morning." The newcomer took a little time to digest this information. His fresh young face seemed deliberately drained of expression. To Place watching him, there seemed something familiar in the set of a jaw. "Well, that kind of saves me a lot of trouble, doesn't it?" "Does it? Rather depends on why you wanted to see Mr. Harris." "Perhaps we don't need to go into that right now. I'm grateful to you gentlemen for giving me the news. That's all. I'd best be getting along." "Just a minute. Before you go, there's 2 questions I'd like to ask you. What sort of man was the late Mr. Harris?" "He was a heel." "What's the other question?" "Is your name Spencer, by any chance?" "Joseph Welber Spencer." "That's me. And John Benjamin Spencer was my brother." "Thank you, Spencer. I think you've told me all I want to know. Now, would you care to identify the body?" "Sir, during my residence in this country I've learned to have a great deal of respect for your police. A very great deal. If you tell me Harris is dead, I don't ask for any ocular demonstration. No, sir. A word of the British police is good enough for me. All I've got to say is this. You have given me a piece of news that is going to spread joy in a lot of hearts where I come from when it gets around, as it certainly will. I wish you a very good day. Percy, ask Wilson to come in here for a moment, will you? Said Place after the visitor had gone. Percy went out into the kitchen and then returned with a grin on his face. I think Wilson's breakfasted on whisky. I can't get him to stir. Oh, well, he's had a shock. He said so himself. Perhaps I can do without him. We'll ask the Yard to send a man round to Chilterns. They may give us a line on the late Mr. Harris. The coroner will want to know something about him, beyond the fact that he was a heel. He picked up the telephone. Get me trunks, will you, miss? I want... He put the instrument down with a crash. Percy, get the car out, quick. Go after that staff sergeant and bring him back here at once. By force, if need be. To a puzzled and rather resentful Spencer, Sergeant Place said, I'm sorry, but I find that I have to ask you to identify Harris after all. If you say so, Sergeant. I've no objection in principle to stiffs, but I should have thought. He broke off abruptly as Place threw open the door of the kitchen. Limey! He went over to the semi-conscious, stertorously breathing figure sprawled in a chair. They said you were dead. Not yet, said Place cheerfully, but he soon will be. Our criminal procedure is rather quicker than yours, I fancy. Now, if you don't mind, we'll go upstairs and you can identify the body of Thomas Wilson, a poor innocent servant Harris poisoned last night when he got your note. He reckoned that when you spread the news of his death, he won't be bothered by John Spencer's friends and relations ever again. It was a neat plan. It might have come off, if he hadn't forgotten himself and talked about long-distance telephones instead of trunks. As he told me himself, he'd picked up a lot of American habits while he'd been away. I expect he came down here for the express purpose of running into you and staging this suicide. Quite a clever ruffian, Mr. Harris. Well now, didn't I say? He was a heel. That was The Heel by Cyril Hare, read by Matthew Jones.